Nice to see everybody this morning. Come on in and let's get started. If you need a copy of the folder, if you asked for a copy last time or if you are new with us, let me know. I made more for those folks who need more. Anybody need one? Okay. It's good to see everyone this morning. Last week we talked about the first letter to the first of the 7 churches. I'm going to trip over that microphone. Let me move it one more time. I can see where this is going. I'll probably still trip over it, but we'll try not to. Last week we began talking about the letters to the churches. The first church that we spoke about was called tough crowd. Ephesus, good answer. And we have more folks trickle in, so I'll repeat about the folders. Several of you asked for more folders last week. If you do not have a folder and you asked for one, I have as many people as asked me plus some more. So if you need a folder, please let me know. I'll get you one. I have them down here. I just have to hand them to you, okay? So we started talking about Ephesus. The book of Revelation is written to who? Who's it addressed to from the beginning? To 7 churches of Asia. So 7, complete number, all the churches, right? Not just in Asia, but the Lord's church in general. Would you consider this book a book of evangelism? Are we told anywhere in the book of Revelation to go forth and spread the good news of Revelation? No. This is a book written to Christians, right? Let's be mindful of our audience. So it's a book written to Christians and the things contained therein. So let's keep that in context as we move through these lessons together. There it goes. Let's get on the second congregation. Revelation chapter 2, starting in verse 8. Church in Smyrna. And to the angel of the church in Smyrna write, the words of the first and the last who died and came to life. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and for 10 days you will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. The one who conquers will not be hurt by the second death. Smyrna and Ephesus are very similar to each other. They're sister cities. They're both massive trades of export, or massive ports of export and trade. The road from the east ends at these cities. Ephesus was the largest and richest of those trade ports. Its sister city, Smyrna, is the second largest, right? But it's the same idea. All the roads from the east end in a terminus here, and now they send it out to sea so that we can get these trade goods sold. This is a very wealthy area. Smyrna and Ephesus were also known as the eyes of Asia because they were located some, I think it's 30 or 40 miles apart, and they're rich. So that's what they called them for the sister cities. We don't have any direct information on the establishment of the church at Smyrna. We don't have a letter necessarily addressed to them anywhere else in the New Testament like we had with Ephesus. Smyrna was also a center for Caesar worship. They required annual burning of incense to the Lord Caesar, or you would be branded disloyal. There's a bunch of Jews in this area as well. So Christians here, as we start to ramp up the Caesar worship and the religion of Rome, so we have this religion and we have the Jews, and everybody gets angry at the Christians. So they have a twofold persecution here. Ephesus, Pergamum, and Smyrna got into a competition to see who could build the temple Like, they put in bids nowadays. We put in bids. Who can get the best bid for the contract? They all put in bids and said, this is what we can offer if we put the temple to Tiberius Caesar. Tiberius chose Smyrna as his location for his temple. So Tiberius Caesar built his temple here. So let's say big hub of Caesar worship. They obviously won this bidding, and they built the temple to Tiberius Caesar and his mother in 23 AD. The patron god of Smyrna was Dionysus, or Bacchus, who was known as the god of wine. And this was a city of beauty, gorgeous city. Everything about it, beautiful. From the harbor, all the architecture, the surrounding land, they worked very hard to keep this a very beautiful city. They considered themselves the first of Rome. They allied themselves very early on with the Roman Empire when Rome was starting their invasion, and so they enjoyed peace and prosperity because they were like, all right, never mind, we'll just join you and we'll save the war. So they didn't have to worry about all the warfare, and they were from the very beginning. So they had almost for the entire duration of Rome's rule, they were able to just sit back, relax, and enjoy all the money. The Acropolis was shaped like a crown. So remember, we said that each one of these letters is focused, and we give this historical background to try to see why some of the stuff is included in the letters. So the Acropolis looked like a crown, and this is contrasted, of course, with what is offered to the Christians if they stay faithful unto death. The crown of life, right? So some of the pagan worshipers to Dionysus would also wear crowns of flowers. So these crowns would pass away, but the crown that God's going to give will be eternal, right? There's something unique about Smyrna. There's actually one other congregation in the letters we're about to read that qualifies for this. What do we not read about Smyrna? There is no condemnation against Smyrna. Ephesus, he said, but I hold this against you, right? Just you got this. You have left your first love. But Smyrna doesn't have that. Philadelphia is the other one that does not have that. And they stand alone as the only ones to receive this accolade. Doesn't really sound like a fantastic place to be, though, right? Because what does he say? What's about to happen to them? Right. He said that's about to befall you. So whatever you've got going on already, hold on tight, right? So I said the city of Smyrna, and we'll just go through the text here, and we'll bring out some points of the drawing, help draw in your audience, right? Make it personal to them. So each letter has different pieces that are historically important and would have made more sense to them. So the words of the first and the last who died and came to life. Because Smyrna was one of the first cities that allied itself with Rome, they considered themselves first. They were the first to ally with Rome. They were the first in beauty. They were the first in literature. The only place that had a bigger library than Smyrna was, I'm sorry, that's Pergamus. We're not there yet. Wrong congregation. But in beauty, first in education, first in beauty, and first in loyalty to Rome, right? So in the opening statement to this congregation, God says, I am the first and the last who died and came to life, right? How are they rich? I know your tribulation and your poverty, so they are monetarily poor, but he says, but you are rich. How are these people rich? Right? Lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where thief does not steal and moth does not take away, or moth does not corrupt, right? So if they were monetarily poor, they were living in poverty, but you are rich. You are rich in blessings. You are rich in faith. You are rich in love. Do not fear what you are about to suffer. Behold, the devil is going to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and for 10 days you'll have tribulation. Now, you can go anywhere in the book of Revelation, pick any number you want to. Is this number to be taken literally? No. There are no numbers in the book of Revelation that are to be taken literally. Okay? 10 days is not some standard time frame that you'd be thrown into jail. It's not like a drunken disorderly, like, all right, spend the night and we'll kick you out later. It's not, oh, you're a Christian, you deserve 10 days in jail. It's 10 days. 10 is, once again, 7, 10, and 12, the perfect and complete numbers, and any multiples thereof. So anytime you see those three, they're going to be indicative of a whole. Now, this 10-day period is a finite period, but we don't know how long that is. So for however long they throw you in prison, they're going to throw some of you in prison. For the duration of it, stay faithful. That's what he's saying. He's not saying you just have to stay faithful for 10 days. He's saying, whatever they do to you, it's only going to last so long. Stick with it. Even if you die, be faithful unto death, right? And I'll give you a crown of life. Prison is not the only thing that was happening to these people. Prison is kind of an ambiguous term here for all the other tribulations that are coming their way. I mean, across the empire, we've already talked about, they're going to be murdered, they're going to be stolen from, they're not going to be allowed to trade, they're going to try to destroy these Christians in every way, with financially, literally. They're going to feed them to lions, they're going to use them as torches to light their gardens, all sorts of horrible things I'm quite thankful that I'm not facing today. On the note of persecution, Smyrna, as we read, the city of Izmir, Turkey, now stands in its location. Is anyone familiar with a man named Polycarp from history? You may have heard his name. Polycarp was a man of God, was a Christian. And Smyrna is where he met his doom. So the angel, we said from the beginning, a heavenly being would have no purpose of receiving a written book, right? So angel means messenger. Could just be saying to the spirit of the church, to the congregation. Or it could be talking about, there may be certain workers that they may be more writing to. I don't know. The messenger here could be Polycarp. Polycarp was a really cool guy. In fact, I want to have the sassiness and the steadfastness of Polycarp. Let's draw a scene together here, okay? So Polycarp is arrested for being a Christian. And he's facing what many others have. They throw him to the court, and how are we going to kill him? And he is standing in the arena for where they would release the animals to come eat him. This man is 86 years old, and he does not give two hoots about these guys that are trying to change him, right? If you know that all they have to do is pull a lever and the door raises up and lions that they've been starving will come eat you, if you're lucky, or it could be something much smaller so it would take longer. But all they have to do is just pull a chain, pull a lever, and all of a sudden these ravenous animals are going to come rip you apart while you're still alive. Seems like a fantastic way to go, right? Most of us would probably have a hard time not standing there and being terrified. It'd be very difficult to stand fast in these conditions. This 86-year-old man has no time for these people. The crowd is gathered. He's probably not the first one that has died today. The crowd is roaring, and they give him a chance to change his ways, to turn from God. And 86 was old at this time. 86 is old now. But can you imagine then? This old man raises one hand, and just like a little kid, hips and lips, he silences the crowd. And when the crowd goes silent, he says, 86 years have I served him, and I will not deny him now. It did not have a positive effect on the crowd. But there's interesting law that you could not feed people to animals after dark. I don't know, the animals might choke. I don't know why they had these laws, okay? You couldn't feed people to animals after dark, probably because we didn't have good lighting and you wouldn't want to waste a good feasting, right? So if we can't feed them to animals after dark, logically the only thing we can do is burn them. So now it's dark. The trial has finally concluded. So the Jews run out. This is on a Friday. Friday night rolls around. Well, by the time the Jews go to gather the wood to kill Polycarp, it's the Sabbath. The Jews ran out, gathered wood, and did work on the Sabbath to kill this man. The Jews were willing to sin to burn a man alive. And standing on that wood, he refused to be tied. And he just stood there as they lit it and he died. Polycarp was a bad man. I hope I have anywhere near his steadfastness. The Synagogue of Satan is referenced in here, right? I told you there's a heavy Jewish presence in Smyrna. What were the Jews? The Jews were go back just a couple years, right? They were the chosen ones, right? They were the children of Israel. They were the children of God. They were the ones with the law. Now we have a synagogue of Satan. The word synagogue here is used to reference the same word. It's the same as the Old Testament, place of worship. So it's the same place, but now instead of worshiping God, they're worshiping Satan in that location. So these Jews that were literally just going to sin to grab the wood to burn Polycarp because they were willing to work on the Sabbath. They wouldn't let Jesus heal on the Sabbath, mind you, but it's perfectly fine to go gather wood on the Sabbath to murder a man. Right? So Satan can turn even the most faithful people into his servants. Satan can take God's chosen people and turn them into his servants. What's our lesson from that? If we do not stand fast, if we are not careful, can Satan get in here just as easy as he can get into God's people? We are now God's people, right? So if he can get to them, can he get to us? Absolutely. If we allow it. But what things make it so much easier for Satan to come in? How did he get to, in this situation, the Jews were wrong, they should have been converted, but how did he get to the Jews in this situation? Envious, angry, strong emotion, right? Fury, hatred, anger. We don't like to use those words associated with the church at all, do we? Right? Because we shouldn't. That should be horrible things to hear about the church. We shouldn't ever say, oh yeah, Christians and hateful in the same sentence.
I was going to say a word that wasn't used as far as a negative, but pride. The Jews were working from a place of arrogance and pride that this is who we are and this is what we can do to you. And so in the church, an arrogance can push somebody away as well as draw them in.
What are the three tools Satan uses? Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. Has he changed his tactics at all since the beginning of creation? They're effective. They are brutally effective. He needs no more than to use those three in some combination. How easy is it to do that here? Someone gets something new, and you're like, well, I want one of those. I mean, it's not bad to be like, oh, that's good. Man, I'm happy for you. That's fine. That is pride for that person. That is encouraging one another. But when you see someone else, you're like, oh, can't believe they got that. I should have got that. Someone gets assigned to a role over a certain task, and you're like, I want that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that if they're doing that because I wanted that. How easy Satan can get in, right? They bought the wrong brand of toilet paper. I can't believe them. Churches have divided over toilet paper brand names and like brand of grape juice that we're using, guys. It sounds stupid and petty, and it absolutely is stupid and petty. And more power to you for recognizing that is absolutely absurd. But Satan can get in here if we allow him a crack and start working that crack. Just like if you have a big log you're trying to split, you cannot get it split. What do? You get it started, you get a wedge in there, and you start driving on that wedge. And the more you hit that wedge, you start off with a tiny crack. But you can crack granite. That is how you cut stone, is you start a small crack, and you drive a wedge, and you split that crack wide open.
When I was working in the blasting business, one of the things that they'd always take into effect is the smallest crack, water gets into it, when water freezes, it expands. So eventually, it's going to be like working metal. It's going to split it apart. And sometimes it doesn't take a lot of water to get that effect to start.
It's got to start small. It's not going to hold a lot of water to begin with. It has to start small. And if we allow that small crack to slip in, right, that's how it starts. So we have to be very careful. We have to be diligent, because he could get to, I mean, how many times in the Old Testament do we see how easily he got into the camp, how easily he got into the children of Israel? We'll read shortly, whenever we get into our next congregation, which we should this class, and we'll read about another guy who Satan got into his heart as well. And wound up having an entire following of worshipers that are still going strong here in the Roman Empire, all the way back from the days of the Jews.
What are things that crack and split? What describes their characteristics?
Usually hard and brittle.
There you go. So I think that's one thing that we have to be careful of in the church, is there are things about which we are to be hard and brittle. And there are things that we are not supposed to be. And the problem is, if we're hard and brittle about everything, even the things that aren't scriptural, then that's where you start having easy times for division. If we're malleable and forgiving and give grace and the things that are of opinion, then it will be hard to split a group based on that. And we just have to be very mindful of what is spelled out. I mean, I think the original 200 years ago was speak, be silent, and in all things, charity and love. And so we have to be careful that we speak and are silent at the right times.
And we need to check ourselves, right? That we are not that brittle, hard person. Nobody wants to snuggle up to a stone, okay? You're not going to get close to someone who's brittle and hard. What last week, Ephesus, they had something that was, what was wrong with Ephesus? I have one thing against you.
Love.
That you have left your first love. Ephesians 1:15, what was their first love? The love that they had for who? Ephesians 1:15. Somebody read it for me. Not everybody wants. So whoever gets there first. Ephesians 1:15.
For this reason, because I have heard of your faith in the Lord Jesus and your love towards all the saints.
There's your reason right there. He finishes that thought with, I've been praying for you, I've heard of you, I've been praying for you continually. And he begins before that in Ephesians with who we are as Christians, how much we matter, how important we are. They had left their first love. Their first love was each other. If we have that same love and we love each other, we will want each other's best interest, and we will assume positive intent towards each other. We will not be brittle and hard towards each other, because I will assume that you are not trying to hurt me. I will assume that you are trying to help me, that you are trying to build me up. And if I enter it in with that mindset, because I love you, it makes a world of difference, okay? This church is undergoing tribulation. Should tribulation discourage us? No. Are we going to undergo tribulation? As a congregation? Absolutely. Are we going to undergo tribulation as individuals? Absolutely. Will it be a definite period, a finite time? 10 years is used symbolically here. It can't last any longer than I'm alive. But other than that, there'll be various trials. They're going to come and go. Just like these people who have some finite, undetermined period, right? God knows. I don't know. God said, stick with it. Tribulations are going to come. They're going to go. They may be worse, and they may not be so severe. But we cannot let them turn from us.
Is this going to be situations where in the church or outside of the church we'll experience that, or is it going to be both? Is that what he's talking about, both here? I mean, because right now we don't have any tribulations. We don't have anybody having to lock the doors. And, I mean, I'm sure you got a few radicals that come around, but I mean, right now we're in a pretty good time where we don't have that particular persecution. Would it be referring to both in and out?
It would be silly to ignore the fact that we wind up persecuting each other? Should we? No. That's what we just said. Absolutely, it's unacceptable. But do we? That's what we were just talking about. Those cracks and those crevices form because we mess up. We do not assume positive intent. We do not approach with love. It happens. We're human. We have emotions. We're not always so good at controlling them. We should get better, and we should love each other all the way. And that heals. Love covers a multitude of sins, right? But I think it would be silly to limit it strictly to outside persecution. I think that we should consider that all the way, because when you're under severe persecution and strain and stress, what's most likely to happen? Whenever you have something stressful going on in your marriage, when's the most time you're most likely to fight? When everything's calm and chill? Or are you going to get snappy with each other whenever you got pressure and something's going on, right? So even if it started as outside pressure, then once you get under that strain and everybody's bent over from the weight of this persecution, tempers are going to be short. You're going to wind up with internal as well. We have to be very careful. Did Christ ever promise some fantastic spot where we're here on this earth and free from persecution? No, quite the opposite, right? If you do not have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. From the beginning, he said he came to divide families, father and mother, husband and wife, brothers. And if you are doing well in your Christian walk, then persecution is going to come. We can read that in 2 Timothy. We can read that in Matthew 10. Take your pick, right? Any questions, any thoughts on the church at Smyrna? Mm-hmm. Right. We'll face persecution individually. You can face persecution as a congregation. We can face persecution as a whole, right? This is written to the 7 churches of Asia because these particular 7 churches, these letters were handed out to these actual locations. But these churches were encompassed within a region at the nation of Rome. So this is which was pretty much the whole world. You had some heathen outliers, but this is pretty much the whole known world. I mean, so this is, in context, a global persecution. So you can have on all levels, right? So the whole church on a global level can experience the persecution. A congregation can experience, and we can experience it as well. Let's move on to Pergamus. Verse 12, chapter 2. And to the angel of the church in Pergamum write, the words of him who has a sharp two-edged sword. I know where you dwell, where Satan's throne is. Yet you hold fast my name, and you did not deny my faith, even in the days of Antipas, my faithful witness, who was killed among you, where Satan dwells. But I have a few things against you. You have some there who hold the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the sons of Israel, so that they might eat food sacrificed to idols and practice sexual immorality. So also you have some who hold to the teaching of the Nicolaitans. Have we heard of them before? Who else had problems with the Nicolaitans? We're only three in, and it wasn't Smyrna. So Ephesus, and now so we got 2 out of 3 congregations so far who had trouble with the Nicolaitans. Do we know who the Nicolaitans were? No. Apparently they were not good folks though. Okay. Therefore repent. Verse 16, if not, I will come to you soon and war against them with the sword of my mouth. He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. To the one who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give him a white stone with a new name written on the stone that no one knows except the one who receives it. Pergamus we know a little bit less about. Okay, it is described as where Satan's seat is. It was a very religious city. But all that religion was not for God, right? There's a large imperial cult, and both the worship of Caesar and pagan gods, especially Zeus here, was rampant. Huge temples were erected to both Caesar and Zeus, who was the chief god of Romans and Greeks. And it was until Smyrna stole it from them and their bidding war with Tiberius Caesar, they were actually the center of Caesar worship here at Pergamus. Antipas was a martyr. which shows obviously severe persecution. You can't be a martyr unless you're dead. So they had killed Antipas for being a Christian. The congregation was commended for standing fast in the face of his persecution and not denying his name. As one lump, so we don't know a whole lot about Nicolaitans. Balaam and Balak and Nicolaitans, we're going to lump Nicolaitans' activities with those followers of Balaam and Balak. The hallmarks were fornication and eating meats sacrificed to idols. If you're eating the meat sacrificed to idols, you're not just eating the meat. Like, it didn't just go grab a steak on the discount line, okay? They are participating. It would be part of the worship service to eat the meat that was sacrificed to these idols. So they would have to be participating in worship to receive that. So they're participating in the services of these pagan gods. Like, I love meat as much as the next guy, but there are limits to what you should do to get steak, okay? And we already pointed out that we're 3 congregations in. 2 of them have already struggled with these people, especially the Nicolaitans, false teachers, and demonstrating the prevalence of these pagan practices. Pergamum is cool because Egypt's had this stuff they wrote on called, anybody? Papyrus. Papyrus was the stuff that the Egyptians were making, their first paper, right? Well, that kind of got in short supply with the whole fall of Egypt, rise of Rome situation. So Pergamum stepped up and said, hey, we got an idea. We'll make it we'll make the stuff called parchment. And that's what we hear about and all the way up until we basically get modern paper, is using parchment, right? Every time you read or see anything about the Middle Ages, they got the scrolls that are parchment. This is where it came from. They were the ones that invented it. This is not exactly a fantastic place to be, it doesn't sound like, because this is where Satan is, right? This is I told you, is a very religious area, a very religious city. So if this is a very religious city, but it's Satan's throne, what does that tell us about worship? Can we worship the wrong thing? Can we worship in vain? We can have, because Smyrna had the Synagogue of Satan with them. Now here we have just Satan's throne. Don't get ahead. We're there. We're going. Stop it. So Antipas, they held fast his name. Colossians 3:17. They had not denied his faith. 1 Timothy 6, Matthew 10. And the martyr Antipas was slain. 1 Peter chapter 2, Philemon chapter 2. Okay? Now, let's get to our discussion point. Even in a relatively sound congregation, y'all are doing great. Y'all are at the throne of Satan, but you're standing fast. You're doing great. I have this against you. You have followers of Balaam, Balak, and Nicolaitans. Anybody recognize Balaam or Balak?
Balaam was an ancient god. I remember hearing him way back.
It goes way back. Now, way back in the Old Testament, where did you hear about him, though? He was a prophet. Whose prophet? God's prophet. Started that way. We better know Balaam for his incident with a donkey. What did the donkey try to do for Balaam, the prophet? Saved his life. Right? Back in Numbers, oh dear, I forgot where Numbers we're at. 30-ish. Okay, 25, 22. It encompasses a large piece. 22 through 25 is Balaam and Balak grouped together, and we read about what Balaam did to betray the children of Israel finally in Numbers 31. So I will be as brief as I can as we recount Balaam and Balak. Balak is the king of the heathen nations, sends in, says, hey, I need you to come curse these people for me. I got some enemies. Balaam said, okay. God says, don't go. So he's like, I can't go. Balak sends people back over and says, hey, come on, let's go. Balaam said, let me ask. He says, God, what do you want me to do? He said, look, if you get up in the morning and they come get you to leave, you can go with them. Balaam gets up and goes out all in his little lonesome, saddles his donkey, and goes with them. This is first fault that we read about in this thing. Was He did not follow his orders. He did not wait for them to come get him. He simply went by himself. So he goes with them to the king, and the Lord said, boy, you better pay attention. You're only going to tell Balak what I tell you to say. You done messed this up once. Behave yourself. So Balak says, I need you to curse these people. Balaam says, cool, who is it? He's like, it's these Israelites over here. God said, got him. No, Balaam, you're not going to curse the children of Israel. Open up your mouth and let me speak. So Balaam speaks what God tells him. He winds up blessing the children of Israel. Balak said, what are you doing? I asked you to curse my enemies, and here you are blessing them. You did literally the opposite. So he says, let's try this again. I need you to curse these people. Balaam says, I can only say what God tells me to say. We repeat the process. Balak's like, literally, we just went over this. You just blessed them again. I'm asking for a curse. You can't figure this out, right? This is where we read about Balaam and Balak. We first read about Balaam on the donkey, right? So on the path to this place, they come and get him. He saddles his donkey like he's not supposed to before they come and get him. And he starts heading down the way. On the way, the donkey's like, I'm going to go this way. He won't follow the path. Balaam gets upset, starts beating the donkey. The donkey does this 3 times. And the third time, as Balaam is beating the donkey, the Lord opens up the mouth of the donkey. I can't, it's Shrek, guys. I can't not hear Eddie Murphy's voice as he's like, what are you doing? Why are you beating me? He's like, you won't go. And he doesn't even pause. Like, Balaam's not like a talking donkey. Like, he's like, well, you won't go over there. And he's like, have you seen over there? And Balaam looks up into the road, and the Lord opens up his eyes. And now he sees the angel with a sword in his hand. And the angel says, that donkey has saved your life. 3 times now he has turned aside, and 3 times I stood in front of you, sword in hand, to kill you, Balaam, because you did not what the Lord said. Because you saddled your donkey and you left with these people, and I told you not to. I told you to wait for them to come get you, and you didn't. God was ready to kill him then and provided deliverance for him, which is, then we get to the point where Balaam goes, yes, that's probably, I will listen now whenever I go to curse these people. And we realize it's the children of Israel, and now he's offering blessings instead of a curse at the king's behest, right? So that's how he stood fast long enough to offer the 2 blessings instead of the 2 curses, is because the whole angel situation. Can you imagine looking up, seeing an angel, sword in hand? And angels, like, we get these really nice, pretty images of angels, like, they look like me, but they're wearing a toga and pretty white wings, maybe a little halo. Like, I don't read in the Bible where that sounds like that. We read about some really weird-looking dudes in the Bible. Got eyes and wings everywhere, and just, I don't know what they look like. I don't have a clue. But they don't sound pretty and calm and relaxing in the Bible very often. Sometimes they appear as men. But whenever they were just described as what they look like as pure angels, it's not some chill dude with a white robe. Okay? So this probably oddly terrifying creature standing in front of you with a sword, ready to cut your head off, who tells you I was ready to kill you, and your donkey saved your life, and you're beating the poor thing. That is Balaam. Now, he realizes fairly quickly here that he cannot curse the children of Israel. It's not working out. So Balak's like, well, what can I do? What can I do if I can't get you to curse these people? Does anybody just happen to remember Balaam's response? Let's look at Numbers 31, verse 16. Whoever gets to it first. Numbers 31, verse 16.
Look, these women caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to trespass against the Lord in the incidents of Peor. And there was a plague among them, congregation of the Lord.
Thank you, sir. So behold these, on whose advice, Balaam's advice, caused the people of Israel to act treacherously against the Lord. What was Balaam's advice then? Send these women to intermarry with the children of Israel. What were the children of Israel commanded not to do into the land that they were conquering? Not to marry these women, because this would happen, right? Well, did Solomon find out and reflect on? Should have done that, right? His pagan wives drew him away. We will read about the great harlot in chapter 17 of Revelation that draws the world away from God. What is our enticement? What is being allowed into the church and into our lives that can pull us away? Talk about standing fast and making sure we don't have those cracks, making sure we have that love for each other. This is another one of the ways that Christ can draw us away. Not Christ, I'm so sorry. That we can be drawn away from Christ, that Satan can draw us away. This is not the first time. How many times were the children of Israel? This is just one of the times.
You answered it earlier when you said, what three ways does the devil use? Lust of the eyes, lust of the flesh, pride of life. That's still, like you said, it is time proven as a basis of attack. This work because we're human. We're tempted, and when temptation fulfills itself, we sin. So
Yep. We have to be very careful. Israel compromised. Even if they didn't change what they believed, even if I stand fast, I don't compromise, but I accept or allow things to go on inside of the congregation, inside of the church that is hated by God. What have I got?
A lot of times in church, even when the Israelites came in, they started making all the Pharisees and Sadducees and stuff started making these rules that traditions, I guess you would call it. They were making more emphasis on that than what God's word is. And, we can tendency to do that. We can make more emphasis on things traditional. And, and it may be all in innocence, and it may not be in an evil way. And I could come in and do the same thing, when we start adding things that's not there in an innocent way.
With them, it wound up being a matter of pride. That's how they maintained power. It's because you have to come to me.
But I'm saying.
So you're right there. We have to be very careful about our traditions versus commands.
But but what I'm saying is we could bring in stuff like that, and it could be innocent enough, and we don't realize it, and we could draw ourselves away and not realize it. These churches here that had things that they were good at, the Lord commanded them over, but they also had things that they let slip in that didn't overcome those issues that they had, even though they were really good attributes of that church. Real good attributes, and he commended them for it really highly. But then he turned around and says, but you got problems. And so stuff like that, they thought they were probably good until they did that. We can do the same thing here. We think we're okay, but there might be some issues we're not even looking at.
Right.
And it may not be the pride or whatever.
What is the mentality right now? When it comes to faith, when it comes to religion, even if you boil it down to Christianity, if we can even say that that's going to hold some standards in the world today, what's the general consensus? Are there standards? Are there things that you need to do, or a way you need to live?
No, if you look at the whole idea of modern concept of Christianity, do whatever you want to. Just we got one focus. You got many branches, so you can do what you want.
As long as you come in here in the doors and give us your money, wear what you want, do what you want. So you don't have to stop doing that. You don't need to leave your homosexual lifestyle. You don't need to do that. Just come and give me money, right? Everybody's accepted. It's okay. You can do whatever you need to. You don't want that baby? Just abort the baby. You don't want to stop living. You don't want to stop drinking? Don't stop drinking. It's fine. Come as you are. It doesn't matter. We accept you no matter what you are doing, no matter what your lifestyle is, no matter what sin you have in your life. Now, should we accept you and love you no matter what sin you have in your life? Absolutely. We absolutely should. However, should we tolerate and accept that sin in the congregation? No. In fact, what are we commanded to do with someone who learns the truth, knows the truth, chooses not to, is confronted by one witness, is confronted by several witnesses, and is confronted by the congregation. What are we supposed to do with that influence in the congregation? Remove it. We are commanded to cast out that from the congregation.
If they are unrepentant.
Yes.
Right.
If they're struggling with it,
If they're choosing to continue in that lifestyle. Not that we all struggle with sin. It'd be silly to say that we need to kick someone out and disfellowship someone because they sinned. And in the church, I mean, we have a problem with that, right? Because it's how many of us were taught growing up that, you can't sin. You just can't. It's like you're back to square zero if you sin, right? We totally leave out the whole grace part, where as long as you are walking in the light, you're walking the path, you are trying to do what you are told to the best of your abilities, right? Then that's where grace comes in. That's where we encourage each other, we carry each other, because we're all walking the same path, we can pick each other up. It's vastly different than someone who knows the truth, sees the truth, and refuses to repent and continues to walk in that lifestyle. When we do it wrong, and it's very easy to have some sort of pride of life or something like that, we see those people and we try to kick them out, even despite their repentance. We put ourselves first or something like that. So thank y'all for the excellent discussion. If you need a folder, there are more down here. Come grab you one, okay?